In a previous video of this series, I mentioned 5 criteria that a zoning hearing board considers when deciding whether to grant or to deny a variance. Now, a landowner, in making their presentation, will have to present facts or testimony that will show the zoning hearing board that they in fact have met these criteria. This video will focus on the first criterion, Criterion 1. Now, the 5 criteria for variances are found in the MPC, or the Municipal Planning Code, and they are typically found on the website of the zoning office of your city or town. I'll use an example from the town of Bloomsburg in Pennsylvania. There they have the 5 criteria listed under Section 27-1003 of the zoning ordinance. Technically, Criteria 1 then is Section 27-1003.C.1. And so a landowner, in addressing Criterion 1, would have to show the zoning hearing board that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions including irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot size or shape, or exceptional topographical or other physical conditions generally created by the provisions of this chapter in the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. More simply put, the landowner must show that there are physical irregularities that prohibit conformity to the ordinance. Here's an example. Let's say that the Johnsons are proposing an addition to their house. And here we're looking at an overhead drawing of their property. You can see that it's located there on Elm Street. There's a back alley behind the house, behind the property, called Monroe Alley. The lot measures 36 feet wide and 54 feet long. It's a relatively small house. It only has 1,250 square feet. It was built in the 1930s, long before the zoning ordinances were enacted. And in fact, it has been designated a non-conforming property precisely because its dimensions don't fit that are required in the district. For example, the side yard setback of the district is 8 feet. That means that no building can be closer than 8 feet to the side yard property line. The Johnson's house is about 4.5 feet, close to that property line, the one off to the right there. But because they have been designated or assigned non-conforming status, they're no longer in any kind of violation of the zoning ordinance. They're okay for the moment. But remember, they're proposing an addition to the house. Here it is. And if we take a closer look, we'll find that the addition is 4.5 feet near the property line in violation of the side yard setback. Now, although the property currently is in a legal state of nonconformity, if the proposed project was brought to completion, it would now bring the property into an illegal state of nonconformity. But what can the Johnsons do? I mean, the house, built in the 1930s, was built 4.5 feet from the side yard property line. And that's not their fault. But if they build the new addition, and then that new addition is too close to the side yard property line, that would be their fault. So what can the Johnsons do? Well, they can either abandon the project or they can seek a variance through the zoning hearing board. And in seeking a variance, we know then that they're going to have to meet at least some of the 5 criteria that the zoning hearing board needs to consider. And one of those criteria, the first criteria that we're considering in this video, could be met if the Johnsons can show that there is some irregularity with the lot and with the way the house was put on that lot in the 1930s that prohibits them from conforming to the ordinances as they stand today. Because remember, in the 1930s, there were no ordinances, so the house was just fine. But now, because there are ordinances and the house falls within this residential district, it's non-conforming because its house is way too close to the side yard property line. I mean, had the house been built 8 feet away from the property line and then they proposed the addition, there'd be no problem. The addition would be, 8 feet from the property line. But it's 4.5 feet from the property line, and that's a violation of the ordinance. But the zoning hearing board can grant a variance that allows the Johnsons to build the proposed addition. And one of the criteria the Johnsons have to meet is to show that there's just no way, because of the irregular, let's say, dimensions of the property where the house is located, there's just no way for them to conform to the ordinance. So in our example, it looks like the Johnsons have in fact met Criterion 1. But there are 4 other criteria that they still have to deal with. And failing to meet any one of those could result in the zoning hearing boards denying their request for a variance. So there you have it, our look at Criterion 1 of the 5 criteria that need to be met in order to be granted a variance.